Can I help you, officer?
Have you met them yet?
The final trailer for Blumhouse's upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's has been dropped ahead of the release on October 27th, so let's take a look at everything we know about this adaptation. Good evening. My name's Evan and welcome to Rocklin Graves. We're a little less than 2 months away from finally seeing the Five Nights at Freddy's movie that feels like it's been in development since the bite of '87. I don't really know what that is. In all honesty, I'm not super invested in the lore of this franchise, but I look back on the first game in particular as one of the most memorable horror games I've played. I've dabbled with the other games, but I never really went much further, and I'm definitely not super familiar with the lore and all the history, but I've been pretty interested in the upcoming movie for a while now. It's gone through a fair bit of development trouble, dating all the way back to 2015 when Warner Bros. Acquired the rights to the IP. Series creator Scott Cawthon was involved from the start, and Gil Keenan was set to direct, but Blumhouse eventually took over the project in 2017 after Warner Bros. Put it in turnaround. A few months after that, it was announced that Gil Keenan was no longer involved, and in 2018, Chris Columbus was brought on as a replacement. A script was announced the same year, but it wound up being scrapped because Cawthon said he had a better idea, despite Blumhouse being pleased with what he'd written. Chris Columbus disconnected from the project in 2021, but it remained in active development, and finally, in 2022, Emma Tammy took the director's seat, and she's the one bringing us the final product with a script co-written by Scott Cawthon, Seth Cudback, and herself. That's a lot of stumbling around, but thankfully, the movie avoided prolonged development hell. Shooting took place in New Orleans from February 1st to April 3rd of this year, and the budget looks to be somewhere in the range of $25 million. Blumhouse is putting more money into this than they did any of the Halloween movies, so you can tell they're throwing a lot at this production. Josh Hutcherson stars in the lead role as Mike Schmidt, who takes the night shift as a security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which was a family-oriented themed restaurant but has a dark history that led to its closure.
Some kids went missing.
The first trailer sums up my understanding of the backstory pretty well.
There are ghost children possessing giant robots.
You probably have some idea of what's going on there because the series was an absolute powerhouse for a long time, but because I'm not overly familiar with some of the finer details of the backstory, I'm looking forward to learning more about all of that. Alongside Hutcherson, Matthew Lillard makes a very welcome appearance as Steve Raglan, which always makes any movie automatically better. We've gotten 2 trailers, and it looks like that's all we're getting, which is perfectly fine with me. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of shorter spots on YouTube that you'll find, but hopefully they'll just be cut down versions of what we already had so the whole damn thing doesn't get spoiled before we've had a chance to see it. If you ask me, I think the trailers gave a little too much in terms of plot, but it is a weird situation because this is such a huge IP that so many people are familiar with, but I'd say leave it more vague and let the movie slowly unravel the mystery instead of telling us what's going on in the trailer. I don't feel like they gave everything away. I'm sure they're still holding some of their cards, but I do think there was just a tad more than I'd like. It looks like Mike brings his daughter into the pizzeria with him, which certainly raises the stakes quite a bit when the animatronics come into play. On that note, something that this movie looks to absolutely nail is the look and feel of Five Nights at Freddy's. The set design is great, and it looks like the pizzeria was really brought to life, but without a doubt, the highlight is the animatronics. Instead of going the digital route with these things, Blumhouse brought on Jim Henson's Creature Shop to design the animatronics, and the results are absolutely stellar. From what I can see, these are pretty much one-to-one with what we see in the games, and it's by far the thing I'm finding the most impressive with this adaptation. You can really tell that the man who started it all is involved with this because the amount of care and attention to detail that looks to be involved with bringing it all to life is amazing. It's all amplified by what so far seems to be a great score from Tyler Bates, so it's safe to say this movie will at the very least nail the aesthetic. Now, I'm very torn on something. There's an element that worries me the most here, but I also think that I just need to be able to accept that this series became so much more than the first game and developed a pretty young audience. The thing that I find so good about the original game is the very dark and eerie tone that it had. There's just something about the steady hum of the soundscape of that game mixed with the lighting and the mechanics that made it an incredibly intriguing and unsettling time. That tone is what I really love about it, but it doesn't look like they're going for that with the adaptation. It looks like there's going to be a lot more big moments than quiet ones, and you can definitely tell that it's being marketed towards a bit of a younger audience, which is completely understandable at this point. It wouldn't make sense from a business standpoint for Blumhouse to make a Five Nights at Freddy's movie that didn't cater to the series' audience. So it really does just come down to me needing to accept that what I would have wanted this adaptation to be is just not what the general fan base would want. It probably won't go too far with violence for the same reason, but there are a few moments that look like they're at least implying some really brutal stuff. Plus the backstory to the pizzeria is pretty damn dark on its own from what I understand. It's also worth noting that there's no chance there won't be sequels, not just because of how lucrative this movie is sure to be, but also because Matthew Lillard already revealed that he signed a 3-picture deal with Blumhouse. They like their trilogies. So that's really all the information we have about the movie. I'm not sure if it's going to be something that I'll really click with, but I'm looking forward to it. It seems like, at the very least, it'll be a fun movie to see with some friends, and hell, we've already talked about buying FNAF apparel because the thought of that is too funny not to make a reality. It's less than 2 months away now, and will release on October 27th, both in theaters and on Peacock, so you get that right before Halloween. You can watch it at home or go to the theater for it, and it looks like Blumhouse is gearing up for quite a big month. I'll be seeing it on release night and following up with my thoughts, but until then, thank you for stopping by Rocklin Graves. I hope you've enjoyed your stay.